Hey guys, today's video is going to be a little different. Before, when I was making videos and discussing my interest in the paranormal, many of you asked for me to share my personal stories and my own experiences with it. Now that I'm creating again and plan on doing some ghost hunting with you guys, I wanted to finally tell some of those stories. If you guys end up liking this video of my personal experiences, maybe I can make a series reading and telling your all's ghost experiences too. I set up another Google form that I will link in the description for anyone to send in a story to be anonymously read. If we get enough people engaging, I'll make some videos sharing them so it can be fun for all of us. And of course, I'll be accepting fan art and other art by email to be shared at the end of every video. The email will be in the description and on screen. So definitely stick around to the end of the video to see the awesome art everyone has been sending in. I want to also just take a second to thank everyone for sending in fan art. It's always so wonderful to see how creative everyone is. And some of them I'm definitely specifically saving for certain videos like the Mothman vlog coming up in the near future. So if I haven't seen yours yet, just know I see them all and can't wait to share them. I also just wanted to thank everyone who's watching this video and who have supported me making more videos about things I love and am interested in. I've experienced so many things throughout the years that it would be hard to recall all of them, but I do have a few that I wanted to share with you guys. Now, let's get into it. I'm not sure when my first paranormal experience was, but I do have memories of whenever I was little. I had my own little bed in my mom and dad's room, and they would be asleep, snoring, and I would be laying in my bed, and my sisters would be on the other side of the house because we lived in a double wide in the middle of nowhere. Our closest neighbors were our family, and they were pretty far too. And so I would lay there and I could hear like indistinct whispers, and I couldn't make out what they were saying or anything, but I would get scared and try to climb up in the bed with my mom and dad because I was too scared to lay in the bed by myself to listen to that. Now that I'm older, I've had a conversation with my sister about it, and she also thinks that she could hear whispering at night too. In that same house, she experienced other things, like she was in the bathroom and she heard the front door open and close. She was home by herself, and she thought it was my aunt, and she called out, but nobody answered, and she thought that she could hear like movement around in the kitchen and stuff, and she kept calling out thinking it was my aunt. But whenever she got out of the bathroom, nobody was there, and she called my aunt, and my aunt said no, she hadn't been there, and nobody else was home. Something else that happened to me whenever I lived in that house was one night I had this dream, and I lived in the middle of nowhere. So I dreamed that something had come up out of these thick woods that was next to my house and ran upon my porch and started banging on my door. And I don't know what it was, but I know it was scary, but I can't explain what it looked like or anything. But it started banging on my door, and I jolted awake, and I laid there for a minute. Well, not really a minute. I laid there for a few seconds, and I heard banging again. And I just froze, and all I could think of was, I'm going to let mom and dad answer that. Well, the next morning I asked them, I was like, who was banging on the door? Did you go see who it was? And they were like, we don't know what you're talking about. So that was pretty scary. The next instance happened at my sister and her ex-husband's house. I was staying the night with them one night, and they had gone to bed, and they lived in a single wide trailer. So I could see down the hallway from the couch where I was laying, and it was just me and them there. So I had the TV on, and behind me was a fish tank and the kitchen, and so there wasn't much room to really walk behind where I was laying. But suddenly there was a shadow of a person on the wall, and it was moving towards me, and I glanced in that direction and didn't see anything. But as soon as I looked, I threw the blanket over my head and was too scared to peek out or anything, and I fell asleep that way. And a little while later, like a few weeks or so, my sister and her ex-husband started talking to our family about some of the experiences that they themselves started to have. They would be laying in bed, and they would see something black just creep across their ceiling, like a big black mass, and they would hear like scratching in the wall. Their cat started acting really weird, but nothing had happened in that house until they were given a wedding gift. And this was given to them a few days before all this started happening by her husband's mother. And it was like this little King Tut lamp thing. and its eyes would follow you. It was supposed to do that, but they got it as a gift, and they had it in their kitchen, and when they plugged it in, it was like that started everything, because that was the only change. And so once they started experiencing those things, they were like, okay, maybe it's this thing for some reason. So they put it in the trash and took it to the end of the road. Well, the next day, my sister's walking out of her house and it is sitting on her doorstep. And so she smashes it in the yard. And that's when all of those things stopped happening. And I don't think it has anything to do with what the item is. I just think sometimes spirits can attach themselves to items. In a different instance, I lived in an old house with some friends, and one day I was sitting in the living room, and one of my friends was asleep and his husband was in the bathroom getting ready. Well, I could see into the dining room from the corner of my eye, and my friend in the bathroom could also see into the dining room from where he was at, and I seen movement in the corner of my eye and just assumed it was my other friend waking up. Well, my friend that was in the bathroom came running into the living room and asked, was that me? Because he thought he saw something in the mirror standing behind him, and he assumed it was me, so he started talking to it. But then the closer he looked, he realized it was just a solid black mass, and it moved into the kitchen and disappeared, and he came running into the living room. And I said, no, I've been sitting here the whole time. And I said, I saw something too. I thought it was your husband waking up. But he looked in the bedroom to check on his husband, and his husband was still asleep. We never found out what we both saw that day, but in that same house, one night when I was asleep, I heard my bedroom door open and thought I heard my friend say my name. And I said, what? And got no response. The door just shut. And so I waited till the next day, and I asked him, what did he want? And he said he never came to my door. In 2016, we did finally move out of that house. In a house I lived at a few years ago, I would hear footsteps upstairs when nobody would be home. I would hear stuff moving around. There was a separate time I saw the arm and the shoulder of a person wearing a white t-shirt go around the corner. And I went after it, and there was nobody there. And it was really tall, too. That was really weird. And in that same house, I would hear knocks on the wall. And then there was one day I was in my closet putting away clothes, and my closet was under stairs. And the person I lived with wasn't home. They were at work, and something ran up those stairs. And I went and looked, and there was nobody there. I was still by myself in the middle of nowhere. In an apartment I lived in a few years ago, one night I was asleep, and I don't know what woke me up, but something just woke me up, and I sat up, and I could see from my bedroom into the kitchen and across the kitchen into a different bedroom. And I saw what looked like a ball of light flash, kind of almost like a camera flash. And when that happened, the light, which was in the kitchen, started swinging back and forth. And I have no explanation as to what that could have been at all. But nothing else really happened in that apartment, but that was very strange. When I was in Christian school, my dad would have to take me to my aunt's house because he would have to go to work, and my aunt would take me and my cousins to school. It was Christian school. We didn't have buses. So when my dad would drop me off, my aunt and my cousins would be asleep, and my uncle would have already left for work. So it was just me. And I went into the kitchen to get some water, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw like a bright, glowing apparition that had blonde hair. And it moved really fast out of my sight from the dining room to the foyer. So I went after it because I had no idea what I just saw. I just wasn't even thinking went after. And I went upstairs. My aunt and my cousins were still asleep. None of them had blonde hair, so it couldn't have been them. And I have no idea what it could have been. But my cousins and my aunt and uncle have also had experiences themselves there. I really can't remember them enough to tell you all about them, but those would be some good stories to tell, I'm sure, if I could get those recounted from them. 2 weeks before my mom passed away, we were getting ready to go to town. She was on a walker and pretty weak, but she still insisted on doing her makeup. While she was at one end of her single wide trailer, I was on the other end in the second bedroom. The bedroom door was messed up and would stick when it would shut, so it was hard to open. I had it closed from where I'd changed my clothes, but it was just me and my mom there. Her cats were all outside during this time of day because they loved going outside. I was looking for my lotion when suddenly the door, which was closed, was kicked open with so much force that it hit the wall and closed. I rushed back to my mom and asked if her husband had come home, and she said no, he was still at work. I didn't tell her what happened because I didn't want to scare her. She died in that same trailer 2 weeks later, so I wonder if it was death warning me. A story that always scared me is one that happened to my aunt. She is very religious, and one night when she was alone, she was in her bed and the room grew very cold. She felt the hair stand up on the back of her neck and she could feel evil. She heard a low growl come from the hallway. They had no indoor pets, so it couldn't have been a pet making that noise. And then she heard claws on the carpet as it came down the hallway. She grabbed her Bible and began to pray and rebuke it. She said the room then got warmer and the sounds stopped, and she didn't experience anything like that again. She, my uncle, and my cousin moved to a different house a few years later, but my cousin said one night she was asleep and her dog was up by her head because they'd had a dog at this point, and she felt something crawl across her legs and the room was suddenly freezing. And she jumped up and turned on the light, and the dog jumped out of bed and followed her out of the room. She has no idea what happened that night either. So the last story I'm going to tell happened when my aunt and uncle were little kids. My grandparents ran an auto store, so they weren't home, and neither was my dad. He was the oldest. He was working at the auto store. My aunt and uncle got off the bus by themselves at home. When they walked in, off to their side was a pool table, and there was a doll laying on the pool table. That doll threw itself at the back of my uncle's head, and he could see it happening from a different angle through a mirror that he was facing. And my aunt seen it from the side of him from coming through the door. And they both ran out and went to their grandparents and stayed there until my grandparents got home. So those are the stories that I can think of for now, but I am wanting to eventually go ghost hunting, and I would love to take you guys with me to do that. My past experiences with ghost hunting, I used an app called Necrophonic, and I have a video that I released, and it's me getting EVPs on that app, and it's a pretty good video. You guys should definitely check it out. This week coming up on the channel, I'm going to go live Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so look out for that. And I know that some of you really want the next Wendigo Cryptid tier list video, but I was thinking about pivoting toward a cult video next and then circling back around to the cryptids later when I'm working on those videos. A friend of mine also has been raving about the game Mouthwashing that is really popular right now. Maybe we could play that in a video? I'm not much of a gamer, but they said it was story-based. Anyway, that's all the updates for now. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.